The reason I bring it up is because I don't know if you remember this, but I told you that in my past as a child we had built a shrine to the Mothman,
Yeah,
and
you just told me
the
that.
Mothman had shown up, and that we had a premonition of this destruction in New York in 2001. So, having had that experience, it seems to me that some of these prophecies were way ahead of their time,
Right.
maybe 35 years or whatever, which led me to think that maybe this prediction of this big blackout in New York was this most recent one, and it just took that long for it to occur.
Right. Well, the attack on the World Trade Center, none of our psychics saw that coming. If you keep up with the psychic literature, which is not easy, normally if we have a major event like the assassination of President Kennedy, it turned out that hundreds of people foresaw that. But with this thing at the World Trade Center, it took everybody by surprise, all the psychics and everybody.
Well, the destruction that I saw was really much more than that. I saw a premonition of the destruction of more buildings. So I'm wondering if that prophecy was simply changed by awareness, or if maybe there's a further one down the road, a further major act.
Well, the pundits on television are telling us now that London is next, and there have been a lot of predictions about something happening in London. Of course, it's a major city full of people, and it's pretty hard to protect. But very often these predictions just lead us astray. While we're watching London, they're doing something to Cairo. The prediction business is very hazardous.
Well, Whitley Strieber talks about it in his Secret School book, and he says that he thinks that these premonitions are warning tools that sort of arise in humanity as we reach these cataclysmic times. That it allows for changing the future, to changing a bad outcome and making it, changing it before it gets here. Do you think there's anything to that?
I don't think you can change the future. I think if we knew exactly what's going to happen 6 months from now, we couldn't do anything about it, because we're not that well organized, that civilized. If we were, we could have a perfect world, and the world becomes more imperfect all the time. I've given a lot of thought to the future, and it seems to me that people who can see the future has to exist in some form, or they wouldn't be able to see it. And I've written about finding a way to tap into this, whatever it is, the universal mind, and then we can see the future. And once we can see the future, and once we know the future of the human race, then this is the childhood's end, and it's all over. We can let the dolphins and the Mothman have the planet, because we don't seem to be doing very much for this planet. We're systematically destroying it, and destroying everything on it, killing off all the life forms. And I'm not sure that's the real plan for this planet.
So earlier you said that you're in this sort of, the thing that you're doing now is trying to keep this going, or trying to find a way to, I guess, live more in harmony. Is that what keeps you coming back to Point Pleasant?
I don't know what keeps me coming back to Point Pleasant. It's pretty much the way they said it in the movies, where Dr. Leak warns, what's his name, Richard Gere, warns him not to go back to Point Pleasant. And I had a lot of warnings like that. And I can't see that Point Pleasant is the center of anything. Universal harmony or whatever. There are other places in the United States where people gather with that kind of thing in mind. They're more attuned to it. But people in West Virginia are just just people. And run into very few psychics.
In my case, I approached the Mothman from a desire to see him. It wasn't. Most people just stumble across him, and it frightens them. Do you think there's a difference if you're a person who wants to find the Mothman like yourself or like me, that changes the way that encounter would play out?
Well, I know that this happens to many people, that they want to see a flying saucer. They want to see Mothman. They want to see something to confirm their beliefs, whatever their beliefs are. There are people who sit cross-legged in a cave for 30 years to attain Godhead and become part of God. And, we had this group a few years ago who committed suicide, thinking that's the way to join the flying saucers.
The Heaven's Gate cult?
Yeah, the Heaven's Gate cult.
Well, my theory on that was, and I don't know if you remember this, but that was the same day that the Martin Luther King family came out and said that they thought James Earl Ray was innocent and that it was the government that had done it. And I just saw it as a...
They went to court and won. It was too late for James Earl Ray, but they had a big court thing claiming that another man was the mastermind behind the whole thing.
Raoul.
Well, not Raoul, a guy who lived in the South, a businessman. They had the evidence on him, and the jury agreed with him, and they were awarded $1, I think.
Yeah.
And it didn't make the newspapers at all. Yeah. The only press it got in New York was in one of the Harlem newspapers, but the other papers just avoided the subject.
Yeah, that was Jowers, the owner of the bar. He had taken the gun or whatever and shuffled it out. Speaking of conspiracies like that, I was listening to a talk recently by Walter Bauert, and he wrote a great influential book in the 70s called Operation Mind Control. And he is now saying that he thinks that the cutting edge of mind control research has something to do with UFOs, but he didn't really go into the details of it. And I was wondering if that rings a bell with you at all. Do you think there's manipulation going on within this phenomenon? I think it's a natural phenomenon, but that there is also manipulation going on by agencies or people.
I had a friend named Ivan Sanderson, who was a real scientist, and he had looked into the UFO stuff and written a lot about it, and he kept referring to the mind patrol, that people's minds were being somehow tampered with in what he had discovered, and there was nothing we could do about it. And as you know, you've known a lot of people who are obsessed or who go way out on a limb on this stuff. Whitley Strieber is a good example. He started out as just wanting to be a writer, and he's ended up with like his mind is opened up to all kinds of things. He's now, I think, back in Texas with a radio program. But did you read his book about the storms, the coming storms, or he wrote a book about the strange changes in the weather, which
it's been a while since I read it.
It's like 2 or 3 years that it came out, and it did not become a big bestseller. I'm surprised. Well, of course, timing is very important in any book, and if you come out with the biggest, best written book of all time, and it comes out with at the same time that Hillary's book comes out, people are going to buy Hillary's book, not yours.